OK, Alpesh Patel of Pryfinium Partners is here this morning with us to go through the papers. Morning, Alpesh.
Morning.
Start with the Irish Times and the ceasefire that was agreed yesterday between Israel and Hamas. The Irish Times taking a fairly sceptical approach, saying it's a temporary respite.
Well, who wouldn't take a sceptical approach to ceasefires in this region? But I was thinking, there's a lot of talk about the two-state approach. I've actually got a solution, and it's a one-state approach, because I look at the Middle East and I think to myself, which is the only state which is a democracy, which has women's rights, has had a woman as a prime minister, which has respects for mosques next to churches, next to synagogues, and equality of religion, and which is the only state which doesn't have Hamas. And I think that one state, you might want to rule the whole of the Middle East. I'm sure I won't get much support for that notion, but you know which that state is, and it's Israel. And if the Palestinians actually did want more support, then they might want to take more of a Gandhian view, which is non-violence. I'm sure they will say, yes, we're being attacked. Well, so were the Indian people, and the Gandhian view allowed that moral superiority and showed what the other side was doing.
Now, many people obviously go back to 1948, if not 1967, and talk about those being the fundamental problems that are not in the least being addressed by this ceasefire or indeed the current political climate.
They're not ready. They're not ready, just as Europe had to absolutely exhaust itself with death and killing in the Second World War before it became ready. And you can tell when two countries aren't ready, because when their sons and daughters are killed, they're ready to do more killing as opposed to seek peace, and that's when you know people aren't ready. And so another solution is don't have a ceasefire, just let them continue killing each other until they are absolutely exhausted of it, and you'll get a state of maturity in about 20, 30, maybe even 100 years, maybe 1,000 years, because it's been going on that long.
I think we're going to hear a lot more about that, aren't we?
I suspect that story and this one are going to run Syria now, and we've had one of the leaders of the opposition saying it's going to take $60 billion to fix it.
I mentioned Gandhi in the last story, and he'd said that it takes a lifetime to build something as beautiful as is actually Syria as a country, and the Syrian people. I've been out there, the people, the vast majority of people, and yet it takes, as we have seen, seconds, hours, days to destroy that, and that's where the 60 billion comes from. What a waste to have created such a massive hole, and I'm sure it'll be even larger than that. Luckily, they have very, very wealthy allies and friends in Saudi Arabia, in the UAE, when you consider Abu Dhabi as the world's richest country, world's richest city, and therefore that's not a big figure. I just hope that they will pull up the bill, because in the West we ain't got no money.
And it also says here on this page that Syria, among the Arab Spring countries, has the greatest potential in terms of investment. Would you agree with that?
Well, absolutely. If you can just get rid of the death and carnage, and you look at the geographic location, you look at the youth of the country, where you can get the entrepreneurialism out of there, where you can get the potential growth. You look at the natural resources, and that's been the tragedy of a lot of these countries, where the equivalent of say Burma, and I think of it like a Burma of the Middle East. The potential is phenomenal if only you got rid of these obnoxious leaders.
Right, let's look at these the next two stories together, shall we? The Times talking about the battle over the EU budget, which is likely to, well, it is going to start today, could have David Cameron on his own yet again, and also the International Herald Tribune, which points up a story that perhaps explains David Cameron's position and why spending at the European Union should be frozen in this time of austerity.
Yes, well, it'd be too easy a shot to say they had a big wine cellar. We know about the wine lakes and the butter mountains and all the rest of it, and the waste in the EU for a long time, but that's obviously precisely the reason. Now, the French Prime Minister says countries which come to Brussels to get their check, their rebate, their discount are being anti-European. Well, the fact that Britain is one of those countries that comes to Brussels for their rebate, he's deflecting the fact that Britain's a net contributor. And I think they're trying to get away from the fact that there is waste, that they're asking for greater than inflationary rises. All of that would be fine if they had some kind of moral superiority to be able to say, we are being efficient. and they're not. So he has absolutely nothing to stand on, does the French Prime Minister, when he says this, other than, I mean, he's drowning in the wine, actually.
Well, 42,789 bottles. That's an enormous amount.
88 since this programme started, I'm told.
But the cheapest one, or the most expensive one, I should say, being only 47 euros. So it's
I'm
not that
teetotal.
bad.
They're going to get no sympathy from me.
So it's all about agricultural subsidies, I think, the wine cellar there, so that works nicely. So autonomy, big story this one. Obviously, if you're Hewlett-Packard, you've bought autonomy, you've brought it in. They're now having a row about with the former CEO of autonomy about whether or not the accounting was, should we put it, standard.
What I found shocking about this is HP are trying to say there is accounting scandal, and they reported it to the Serious Fraud Office, according to this report. Now, to me, from the little I've read about this, it seems laughable that they've done this, and I think there's the impression I get is there's HP executives who are having to answer tough questions back in the States and trying to deflect the blame a bit, because from what I've read, this is not a case of fraud. It is a case of autonomy saying, well, actually, we put something down as a marketing expense. They actually haven't hidden anything. They just said we've put some things as marketing expenses and some things in a different column. And we've been doing it for years, and we're a profitable company. And it's a FTSE 100 company which has had the torch of transparency upon it for many a long time. It's usually American companies, the big ones, that have accounting scandals, not British ones, I have to say, in the FTSE 100.
Finally, let's take you to the Moscow Times. And did you know there was a Miss Earth competition? It's due to be held in Manila on Saturday, and the Russian entry is making herself popular with the Moscow Times, which doesn't take a Putin stand, but perhaps making herself not terribly popular with the Kremlin.
You know what I liked about this? This is actually a genuine patriot. This is a lady who has said no matter who rules her country, she's urged her countrymen to identify themselves with mercy, heroism, courage, diligence. She's actually said, look, it's a great country with great people, it's just being misruled. And that takes a lot of courage in Russia to say if you don't want to end up in prison. So all the strength to it. And I will be researching the Miss Earth competition diligently today, and I will be in contact with her to congratulate her on her patriotic views. But actually, on a serious note, whatever your reasons for profile, if you can highlight important issues, I think you have every right to do so, because you are right when you do it.
Alpesh Patel, thank you very much indeed, and thank you for taking us through the newspapers this morning, and thank you for being with us.